Now, Photoshop can't help us with its content-aware fill, except in very small little areas because this is such a complicated image. It just doesn't have enough information. So we're going to have to be creative in our next steps. And number one, I'd like to straighten this image, but I'd like to straighten this image so that this bar is vertical, this first bar, instead of at this angle, skewing from the bottom right to the top left. You see that? But I don't need to straighten everything because we're going to crop this 16 across by 9 high. So this is going to be a very narrow little window here, but still we'd like to get this straight. So there's always multiple ways to straighten this, and I'm cheating, turning this back to the default because you need to, for this, we're going to use the ruler tool. I'm going to click and hold on the eyedropper, come over and drop down to the ruler tool. And if you happen to have any of these other tools active, you do the same thing and then get the ruler tool. And then I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Just hit Command plus and pull this up. Kind of like that. And you may not have to hit Command plus because remember, I'm on a 5K monitor. So you just want to kind of get the image like this where you can see this window and you can see at least one bar and most of the next. And then below this, you can see at least a full bar and a little more. Then I want to click and hold on the left side. See, let me zoom in on the left side of this bar. So I'm going to click and hold, and I'm dragging this down. See this little line? If you don't see this in the video, when you click and hold, I'm not letting go of the mouse. I'm clicking and holding down here, coming up to the edge of that line, and then I'm going to let go. Now, see that line? Now I can grab that line right from the end and click and move it. So you can continue to adjust this. And if you accidentally click and deselect it, you can, redraw the line. So you want to get it just right. So you can go ahead and adjust it until you got the left side of that line straight. And you might say, that's a shadow. Do we really have that line, or do we miss it a little bit? It's not going to be exactly perfect, but it is what it is. And then we're going to click on Straighten Layer. And then Command 0 to zoom out, get full size. And you can see this checkerboard. This is where our image is rotated and there is no information in these areas. So we can't use this part out here. That's okay. Remember, we're going to be using a 16 by 9 aspect ratio. 16 wide, 9 high. Now, we could use the crop tool, but Photoshop's crop tool is pretty twitchy. And until you become a lot more adept and learn how to zoom in and out and really work its nuances, there's an easier way to do this. And that's with the rectangular marquee. Now, you notice I have the elliptical marquee right here active. I don't know what you have, but click and hold, and the rectangular marquee is at the top of this stack. Make sure you select that. And then in the options bar, and if you don't see this options bar, it means you didn't do the Photoshop fundamentals, the basics that I asked you to set this up. So just so I don't bust you, why don't you come up to Window, go down to Options, make sure it's selected. If it's not, select it. If it is, leave it alone because it's there. And then go ahead and save your workspace. And I'm not going to tell you how to save it because if you don't know how to do that by now, you haven't been paying attention. You need to go back and do those Photoshop basics. Stop cutting corners. All right, so now we have the rectangular marquee. Make sure your feather is set to 0. No feather whatsoever. And then the style, it says normal. We don't want normal. We want fixed ratio, not fixed size, fixed ratio. Now, 1 by 1 is what I got. I don't know if yours is set to 1 by 1, but see width and height? I'm going to type 16 for the width, hit tab, and type 9. 16 by 9 is the aspect ratio of our computer monitors. it's HD. And actually, our monitors are 4K. 2560 by 1440. So right now with this 16 by 9, we can click and hold, and I'm going to come up right about there and click and drag and just drag over, and I click too high. So you can see I have cropped up here. Well, I can move this thing. I can click and drag it down. I can move it because what I want is I want an interesting area where we have our face and our dumpster, you know, RT dumpster 2, whatever this thing is. But look at our crop. Now I could click again and drag out, which would be really easy. See, watch. I could click again at that point, and actually I can start off the screen so I make sure I get everything, and then click and drag and come over right to the edge, but not past it. See how that works? But there's also a way to transform a selection, and it's not Command T. If you go under Select, you can get Transform Selection. And I don't think it ships with this. I think this is one of my custom keyboard shortcuts because it's got the Control key right here. So we'll talk about setting. Oh, I showed you how to do that custom keyboard shortcut in Illustrator. You know, you could do that in Photoshop if you wanted, but it's not required at this point. And so now I can click Command plus to zoom in a little bit. Command plus to zoom in a little bit. Hold down the space bar and move this so I can see a little better where I am. I want to stay right on this edge because we haven't lost any pixels here, and we're kind of set up pretty nice, and I want the maximum available area. But do I really want this line coming in and appearing right at this corner? And the answer is, I don't think so. I'm going to pull this in a little bit. So I just missed that. And now we can nudge this. We can do all kinds of stuff. But I'm going to hit Return in order to set that selection. And then I hit the letter V to switch back to the Move tool. In Illustrator, V gets you the Select tool, the black arrow, the Selection tool. In Photoshop, it's the Move tool. This is the go-to tool in both programs. It's the one you want 99% of the time. Now, what I want to do, there's all kinds of different ways to do this. But again, I want to teach it. I want to reinforce some skills you already know, and I want to teach you some new stuff. Command J, jump this to a new layer. I want to jump this selection to a new layer. Command J. Notice how this jumps up? And then I want to hit Command S to save this. Notice this is a JPEG. A JPEG only has one layer. When I hit Command S, Photoshop's going to go, whoa, 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 whoa. This is not a JPEG. I'm going to append .psd on that same name, and I'm going to save it into the same directory that this image came from. Cool. That's exactly what we want.